the sake of your children, for the sake of your grandchildren, for the sake of life and this beautiful living planet, I ask you to stand on the right side of history.
You, Fridays for Future, have created an immense hype all over the world. And we are so happy and proud to work with you. You gave me hope back that maybe we can still prevent the climate crisis from becoming even worse.
Greta Thunberg has inspired an international youth movement against climate change. Students in multiple cities around the world skip school on Fridays to attend these Fridays for Future strikes. We went to the largest German strike so far to hear what the young protesters had to say.
I'm here today because there is a big problem, and I think that if enough people show up, like the huge amount of people we have today, then it will make enough of a voice for the people in power, the people in positions of power to actually listen to us, especially the young people, because it is our future.
Ja, ich bin heute hier, weil ich glaube, dass es halt entscheidende Schritte in der Klimapolitik braucht, um sich was zu ändern, und auch sehr, sehr tiefgreifendere Schritte. Also ich glaube, da wird es sowas wie eine CO2-Steuer nicht machen.
Dass es auf jeden Fall mehr Fahrradwege gibt und dass weniger Leute Auto fahren.
Zum Beispiel CO2-Steuer, das wäre natürlich was Schönes auf Bundesebene. Auch, dass anerkannt wird, dass wir nicht bis 2050 Zeit haben für die Klimaneutralität, sondern bis 2035. Kohleausstieg bis 2030, Ende der Subventionen für fossile Energien, sowas halt.
Sie nehmen das nicht so ernst, das Thema. Und das ist halt sehr schwierig, dass sie halt Versprechen geben, die sie niemals erfüllen werden und dann auch einen Plan für mehrere Jahre ansetzen, aber der dann 10 Jahre, 20 Jahre dauern wird. Und damit wird sich das Klima ja nicht die Zeit nehmen.
I know Trump even tweeted something very stupid like, oh, it's super cold, that means that climate change can't possibly be real. And it's just that there's not enough education out there and people aren't informed enough.
The main reason for the protests seems to be holding politicians accountable, and the protesters in Aachen suggested concrete improvement strategies.
Also wenn ich selber mal schaue, was ich jetzt alles gelernt habe, dadurch, dass ich die Demos bei mir organisiere, also das heißt reden, schreiben, vor einer großen Menge reden, einfach dieses strukturierte Arbeiten, organisieren, man muss super viel vernetzen mit Leuten, also man lernt super viel auf der sozialen Ebene, was man in der Schule niemals lernen würde.
Young people were not the only ones protesting at the Fridays for Future strike in Aachen. These are the voices of parents and grandparents.
I have 3 kids, and the 13-year-old, she goes on the street for weeks now, and I think it's good to keep the people thinking. Starting from the kids, I guess, is a very powerful initiative also to get the parents.
Wie hat Brecht mal so schön gesagt, nach dem Gipfel der Empörung oder auch vielleicht des Erfolges kommen die Mühen der Ebene. Und im Moment ist, denke ich, Fridays for Future auf dem Weg zu einem Gipfel und diese große Veranstaltung, du hast Aachen hier noch nie erlebt, große Veranstaltung heute, aber es muss nachher in die Breite gehen.
The main goal of the protests is to pressure politicians into taking action. Here is what some of these politicians had to say about Fridays for Future and about climate change in general.
The politics from above, they make the rules. And if the rules are not good, so nobody on the bottom can change anything, so you must have both. Fridays of Future shows us how it goes from the bottom to the top, and now the top must show the reaction of these things.
We must change everything, but it's not the younger people. They are always in the opinion we do it now and we do it directly, but I think it's not possible to do it so directly. We need a little bit of time to change so many things. Yeah? It's not possible to change. We need our energy. We need it. Yeah? It's impossible to go backwards.
I can act individually, but only to a very limited degree. I cannot shut down my coal plants. I don't own them, and I have very limited influence, for example, on how the energy was produced for stuff that I buy. The biggest part has to be done in a common political environment.
I think it's very, very good to have these young people, because a lot of time, 10 years ago, the oldest say always the young people are chilly and do nothing and not interested in politics. And now we see how it works, and it works worldwide. We have demonstrations in Hong Kong, in Australia, in USA, in Germany, in France.
Even though the Fridays for Future movement is taking place in many different parts of the world, here, the way I see it, it's a white movement, which doesn't say that there's no kids of color or black kids that are participating in it, but it's not explicitly also addressing the realities of children and their future in the what you call the global south. So I think it's, I hope not, but I am a bit concerned that it might fizzle out quite soon.
Grundsätzlich ist eine politisch aktive Jugend, die Sachen reflektiert, wichtig, aber sie muss es halt auch wirklich reflektieren. Und das ist eben eine Sache, die ich bei Friday for Futures in dieser Form nicht sehe, sondern hier werden tatsächlich Thesen, das sind nun mal einfach nur Thesen, dass der Mensch einen maßgeblichen Einfluss aufs Klima hätte, die werden halt als Faktum einfach wahrgenommen, die werden einfach als gegeben angenommen. Daraus wird eine gewisse Endzeitstimmung erzeugt, wie man das halt auch in gewissen religiösen Sondergemeinschaften einfach kennt. Wir haben nur noch wenige Jahre, wir stehen kurz vor dem Kollaps und so weiter. Ne? Und das alles erzeugt natürlich gewisse emotionale Aufwallung. Und das finde ich schon sehr kritisch, muss ich sagen.
In general, I'm very glad that the youth is taking their interests and put it forward and very loud and very obvious and for politicians to hear. Because politicians, we get a lot of interest groups and they are very vocal about what they want. But the youth in general is not doing it very much, and the effect is they are often not really heard.
When you are a worker and you go on strike, you don't do it on Sunday. So it doesn't work when you do it in your free time. It must work in this time where other things happen. And so I think what you learn in this connection with other people on Fridays on Future, it's better like school sometimes.
Davon halte ich tatsächlich nichts. Also Schulzeit ist Schulzeit und es kann einfach auch in der Freizeit entsprechend Aktivität entfaltet werden. Dafür muss nicht die Schulzeit genutzt werden.
They have to do something that annoys other peoples and enrages them and makes them visible. And I think this not going to school is, well, more or less the only thing they can do.
All politicians had in common that they appreciated the young generation being politically active. With one exception, they also supported Fridays for Future specifically and mostly saw skipping school as a tool to raise awareness. This includes conservative politician Dr. Tim Gruttemeyer of the Christian Democratic Union and center-left politician Yewon Ri of the Social Democratic Party, who both sent us written statements. Some even agreed with the sentiment that the protesters are learning valuable skills by participating. However, there are also criticisms of the movement. such as a lack of intersectionality and a supposed over-dramatization of climate change.
I think it's one of the important things of the world in the moment, because we see 80 million people are refugees, and most of them are refugees of the climate change, because they have nothing to eat, they have nothing to live, and so it's a global problem. And if we don't...
According to the Climate and Migration Coalition, there's no official definition of climate refugees. It is also generally difficult to estimate the overall amount of refugees because of undetected cases.
Also der Klimawandel, der existiert, das ist unstrittig. Das Klima wandelt sich fortwährend. Es hat sich auch in der Vergangenheit über die ganze Zeit der Menschheitsgeschichte immer gewandelt. Die Frage, wie groß der Einfluss des Menschen auf diesen Wandel ist, die ist strittig.
I studied environmental science and I did my finishing thesis on the evaluation of climate measurements in Middle Europe. And well, the research is quite clear and it's nothing new. And this was 15 years ago, and since then nothing much has changed. It only proved again and again there is climate change, and it's, as far as everyone knows, driven by human influence. And yeah, for me, I don't know what to talk about. Okay.
Most of the people that we interviewed agreed that human-made climate change is real and needs to be addressed, but there is some doubt. After hearing from environmental scientist Gunther von Hein, we asked some more experts. The first ones are members of the Scientists for Future, an organization that is in support of Fridays for Future.
Fridays for Future movement is only repeating what we have analyzed before, but Fridays for Future do it much louder than we can.
I don't see much perspective in entering in, let's say, a fact-based conversation with climate change deniers. Because in the end, it's not about climate change, it's about different things usually. Temperature will rise, climate will change, and the faster and at the larger scale we can act, the better in terms of preventing large-scale climate change.
Look at this picture. You see the temperature, and it is rising extremely during the last 200 years, 2 centuries. So it's exactly the period since we started to dig coal, to use oil, to use gas. So, and you see the temperature and you see the rising of the sea level. If you don't believe it's human-made, sorry.
Political and industrial action has to start as soon as possible. Yeah. And if we don't start today or tomorrow, we will not reach these goals.
It's not the politicians. It's not that everybody wants change, but the politicians are against it. No, the politicians are just doing what they think that might help them to pass the next election. So I don't think the problem is with the politicians. The problem is with, let's say, the majority of people. Big problem is that what nobody wants to tell is that fossil fuel has been extremely cheap source of energy because it simply was there, and the only thing we had to do is drill a hole and take it up. Yeah, so it's the cheapest form of energy that you can imagine. No alternative will be as cheap as that, if you don't include the hidden costs of pollution and climate change, etc. The question is, who pays the bill? And nobody wants to pay the bill.
It is going to be the young generation if there's enough time left. We don't know that because the wild plants are now under very serious threat. Worms, arthropods, amphibs. So it looks very, very dark. So even if you are very conservative, only interested in money, capitalism, sustaining your lifestyle, being in power, and so on, then even then you are going to be fucked sooner or later, because the natural disasters are going to put you in a position where you just would have to eat your money.
What is the conclusion to this triangle of voices? There is a minority of scientists who doubt the existence or the severity of human-induced climate change. Unfortunately, the ones we contacted did not want to be featured. Most experts agree that humans are causing the current climate change, with devastating effects like natural disasters. According to them, we need to take action now. Fridays for Future protesters are striking in hopes that politicians will make the necessary changes. Will the movement be able to kickstart political advancements in climate protection? Time will tell.